everybody. Music cut off here. Welcome to our Wednesday night live show. Anyway, we got a lot of news to cover tonight. Welcome to everybody in the chat room. I see Irina in there. How you doing, Irina? Shonda, as well as I see Matthew in there. And let's see, a great douchebag. I saw him in there earlier. And I just want to welcome everybody to the chat room. Aaron, I see you in there as well. And thanks, everybody, and thanks to all those who are viewing and all those who will be viewing later. So, yeah, immigration is a big topic of the night. We got a full-blown emergency. The border surge is shattering records as tariff looms. And also, as you know, the House of Representatives passed a bill pretty much along party lines. The DREAM Act bill was going to provide legalization for it says, at least 2 million. So, I mean, anytime you hear a number like, well, roughly 2 million. Hey, Jervis, how you doing there? But 2 million, I mean, that 2 million, that's a bottom, that's a floor number. Okay, that's a bottom number. It's going to be higher than that. You know, when Reagan did his amnesty back in 1986, people they had I forgot what the number they estimated was going to be for people who are going to come out and ask for amnesty, and whatever that number was, it was almost like twice as high as who actually showed. I mean, the number who actually came out was like twice as high. Because people just suddenly started coming out of the woodwork. Oh, yeah, hey, that's me, I qualify. Hey, that's me, I qualify. Hey, that's me, I qualify. And same thing is going to happen with this, I'm sure. But it's not going to pass. It's not going to pass the Senate unless, of course, you know, we lose in 2020 and the Democrats retake both this House and the Senate and the White House. Then, of course, then it will pass, and then it's open border city. In fact, they'll probably make it more of a law where pretty much everybody who's here for at least X amount of years, pick a year, it doesn't matter, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years, who cares? And then, of course, trying to document when they got here. If they're illegal, they never, you know, have any legal documentation anyway, so it'll pretty much apply to everybody. The bottom number, this guy Goolsbee was on Tucker Carlson last week, and he said, he thinks the number's like 6 million illegals are here. Well, the number for years, according to every estimate, has been at least 11 million. Princeton just did a study. They did a big research project over there. And again, Princeton is very liberal, very leftist university. It's part of the Ivy League. Michelle Obama, in fact, graduated from Princeton. And their number they came up with was 22 million. 22 million, not 11 million. And they said that was a bottom floor number, too. So they were thinking it was even higher. So, you know, they're basically looking for, you know, complete open borders, legalization. They need more voters. That's the problem. You know, if they run right now if the only people who voted right now are the people who are legally able to vote right now, you know, Republicans win, well, as long as Republicans don't screw up, because if you saw my description here, the rhinos are pretty much, you know, undercutting President Trump's negotiating position with Mexico right in the middle of a negotiation. It's bad enough if Schumer comes out and says, Trump just bluffs, it's no big deal, you know, giving away that position, but the rhinos come up and say, we don't like tariffs. Well, that's because, you know, they're supporting their global elites and, you know, the special interests and the Koch brothers, Romney people, those kind of people who like, you know, cheap labor because, you know, they want to make bigger profits and they could care less about the American worker. And, you know, the more people looking for a job, if you have 100 people in a room looking for the same job and you walk in, you say, hey, you know, I want to make, you know, $17 an hour, and the guy's only offering 12. Well, the guy's going to look at you and laugh, say, hey, I got 99 other people back there. You know, I could probably get them for 10, but get 12. So, no, I'm not going to pay you more. Now, there's only 5 people in the room, and you say, hey, I'm more qualified. I'll make you more money, and I want, you know, 17 an hour. Well, you might have to think about it, and maybe he'll pay you that 17 bucks an hour. You know, that's how it works in the real world. But if you have a ton of people lining up for the same job, you know, wages always go down because employers don't have to compete for you. You know, you are competing for a job versus when there's not a flood of large amounts of labor, you know, out there. Then the employers, you know, they have to compete for you versus lots of labor, lots of people looking for the same job. Then you're competing for the job, and wages go down. That's just a natural effect. That's supply and demand. It's economics 101, as we would say. So anyway, let's take a look at this story here. It's pretty nasty. The numbers that just came out. Let's take a look here. From the Washington Times, full-blown emergency, border surge shatters records as tariff looms. Stephen Dine in the Washington Times, U.S.-Mexico border continues to break records, and they're all bad. No kidding. Authorities reported that's because the Democrats and the left keep telling these guys, "Hey, just come across, claim asylum, come as a family unit. We can't get rid of you." So what do? They come as a family unit. They claim asylum. We can't get rid of them. Authorities reported another record in May for the number of migrant families nabbed at the border, with more than 100,000 parents and children either apprehended by the Border Patrol or encountered trying to enter through border crossings without permission. That's just from the month of May. The month of May. Okay, extrapolate that out 12 months for the year. It's 1.2 million. 1.2 million. That's just the ones that get caught. Okay, that's not the ones that come across illegally as well. Those grim numbers have fueled what is already a record number of illegal immigrants held in custody and a record number of people who have been released into American communities with little hope of rousting them for deportation later. Well, yeah, it's politically incorrect. If you go into a factory or something and you say, "Hey, you're here illegally. Come on, you're under arrest," and then here comes CNN, MSNBC, showing the little kid, running up to the daddy or mommy, mommy, no, don't go, don't let him take you," and cries, tears, everything else. The big humanitarian stories in the Washington Post. New York Times, above the fold, front page stories, editorials posing as, real news. You get all that nonsense. Big panel discussions on the roundtable discussions on the CNN and MSNBC, the whole thing. And, and then we just don't have the manpower. We just don't have the manpower. I mean, most of the guys at the border can't even guard the border because they're busy taking care of people. So anyway, it says, "We are in a full-blown emergency, and I cannot say this stronger. The system is broken," John Sanders, acting commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, said as he detailed the depths of the border crisis for reporters. Armed with those numbers, Vice President Mike Pence met with Mexico's foreign minister to demand that his country do a better job of stopping migrants from reaching the U.S. border in the first place. At stake is President Trump's threat to slap 5% tariffs on Mexican imports next week and to increase the rate monthly until it reaches 25%. Mr. Trump, traveling in Europe, said in a Twitter post that the discussions were going well, but there was not nearly enough progress from Mexico. He went on to say, "Talks with Mexico will resume tomorrow with the understanding that if no agreement is reached, tariffs at the 5% level will begin on Monday, with monthly increases as per schedule," the president said. "The higher the tariffs go, the higher the number of companies that will move back to the USA." So it's actually a win-win for us. I mean, yeah, okay, look, again, I got, a little frustrated with Americans, last week when I said, I think it was maybe even Monday, and I said, "Look, we're all going to have to pay a little bit more maybe for some of the goods we buy at these stores. Get over it, okay?" During World War II, I mean, this is D-Day celebration is tomorrow, June 6th. And for some of you, it's already going on right now if you're on the East Coast. D-Day, June 6th. A lot of Americans sacrificed a lot at home. You couldn't, you were given ration cards. You were only allowed to buy so much gasoline per month, and it was expensive. You really pretty much couldn't buy a new car during World War II because all the auto manufacturer plants in Detroit and around the country were converted to building Jeeps and trucks and tanks, for the war effort. So, I mean, that was out. Tires, as far as you forget trying to buy new tires because all the rubber was being, again, given for the war effort for the Jeeps and the trucks and everything else. So, I mean, and you had to pay a lot more for everything. And that's just the way it was. But, if you're going to claim you're patriotic American, I don't want to hear you complaining that, instead of, paying, $10, or paying $20 at Walmart, you got to pay, $25 or $22.50 or whatever the hell it would be. Anyway, Marcelo Ebrard went into the meeting with optimism. He posted a Twitter message that said he believed that there was about an 80-20 chance of reaching a deal. He didn't say what he would be offering, but news reports out of Mexico said he would suggest stepped-up patrols on Mexico's southern border, which Central American migrants generally pass through en route to the U.S. The border between Guatemala and Mexico is only 120 miles long. It's not like ours is 2,000 miles long. I mean, come on. I mean, they look, and there's a lot of choke points in that border. Not like wide open like in the desert, like in Arizona or New Mexico. There's a lot of choke points, a lot of crossing points. There's water. There are bridges. I mean, there's places you can stop these people, and they need to stop them. But here's the problem though: Republicans in the Senate saying, "Oh, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to side with the Democrats to do a veto-proof majority vote, 2/3 vote in the Senate and the House." To to stop Trump from imposing the tariff, which they can do with a 2/3 vote. And And so here's Trump negotiating with the Mexicans, saying you better do this or else. And they're looking at the same news feeds we are, the same headlines we are. They're saying, well, no, you're not, because hell, even the Republicans aren't going to back you, and you're not going to be able to impose these tariffs. So why should we negotiate? So most likely they're kind of sitting back, seeing what the Republicans are going to do in the Senate and in the House, seeing if they can override the vote. But I'll tell you right now, these people in the Senate, they forget why. Mitch McConnell forgets why he's the majority leader and not the minority leader. Okay, first of all, the Democrats are supposed to win the Senate and the House in 2016. They won neither. And the only reason why they won neither is because Trump was a Republican nominee and Trump won for president. If that had been a Jeb Bush or anybody else up there, trust me, Clinton would have rolled over on him like he wasn't standing there. And it would have been the big blue wave they were predicting, and they would have taken the House and the Senate. And then even in 2018, the Democrats took the House. The only reason why they didn't take the Senate also, because remember, Trump went out there and campaigned hot and heavy for those tight races in Missouri and other places. And he changed it. I mean, he made the difference in Georgia, in Tennessee, and in Missouri for sure. And we only have a 53 vote majority. That's it. So if it wasn't for Trump out there campaigning, we would have lost the Senate. Mitch McConnell would be a minority leader, and so he better remember why he's in the position he's in right now. And those senators also, a lot of them would have lost their seats, and a lot of the ones who got elected wouldn't have got elected. So I don't know what and then they're saying, oh, it's going to hurt the economy. First of all, what the hell do the Republicans in Congress know about the economy? They can give a shit about the economy. They didn't do anything about it all the time they had power in both in the Senate and the House. They didn't do anything to help. If it wasn't for Trump, the tax cuts would have never got passed. He had to go in there, put some muscle on some people, and make some deals to get people, the Republicans, just to vote in favor of the damn thing. The deregulations, that's all Trump. The Republicans in Congress have nothing to do with that. That's all President Trump. As far as bringing in foreign investment and jobs and everything, that's all Trump. So, I mean, the reason why the economy just took off like a maniac is because of him. It's not because of anything they've done. So who the hell are they to talk about, oh, well, he's going to hurt the economy? What do they know? What do they care? They don't care. They only care about the Koch brothers and their other big global elite, the Mitt Romney crowds, as far as wanting cheap slave labor, so they can make huge profits. I have no problem with people making profits, but, at the same point in time, it's okay to pay a decent wage also. And when you flood the market with cheap labor, I'm sorry, nobody's getting paid a decent wage, which is why your middle-class income was stagnant for like 15 years. It's only just gone up. And guess who was president? President Trump. Gee, another shocker. Anyway, so American officials say that is not likely to be good enough for Mr. Trump, who wants concrete improvements. In other words, he wants to see the numbers coming down. It's like, don't tell us what you're going to do. Just do it, and we'll know it's working or not working based on the metrics are going to be when the numbers go down. Right now, it's 4,500 a day are being apprehended, 4,500 a day. So I tell you what, when we see the number go down to like 1,000, then we know you're doing something. Until then, you're not doing shit, and that's just the way it is. So even though Mexico has increased its apprehensions at its own border, the ratio is still only about 1 in 5 people with a flow of perhaps 5,000 a day crossing. That leaves thousands who are making the journey. Customs Border Patrol said Monday that the latest day for which the government has statistics that 4,100 unauthorized migrants had reached the U.S.-Mexico border. The numbers were worse 20 years ago when the border could average 7,000 migrants a day, but authorities said the current flow is much worse because of the demographics. Almost all the immigrants 20 years ago were single adults from Mexico. I said this on Sunday night. And also, I think on Friday, when I showed the difference between the demographics between who were coming across, even just back in 2007, just 12 years ago. So just 12 years ago, the demographics were different. They're generally single men, and the thing with single men is, one, once you catch them, you could deport them. There was no issue. That's one. Two, they're single men, okay? One, men don't like going to the doctor. I don't care what country you're from, so they weren't coming over here jumping on top of health care. I mean, men, we just don't like going to the doctor. Again, I don't care what country you're from. It's universal across the planet. Men don't like going to the doctor. Two, they're not pregnant. They're men. They're not having babies, so they don't need health care for that. Three, they generally had jobs. They generally had jobs waiting for them when they got here. It wasn't like they came across and they go, gee, what do I do now? Look around, No, they knew where to go. I mean, they knew where to go. They knew where to get the jobs. Meat processing plants, chicken processing plants in Mississippi, meat processing plants up north, Central Valley agriculture, Imperial Valley, Imperial County, California agriculture, certain service jobs, construction jobs, things like that. it wasn't like, they're wandering around, and they're applying for Section 8 housing. They didn't. They weren't applying for like EBT cards. They weren't. Okay, so it wasn't a big drain on the economy. It wasn't a big drain on the social safety net, and it wasn't like some humanitarian crisis. I mean, they were guys. I mean, they're men. I mean, it's just, but now it's like these families. So when you probably have a family unit come across, see what they do, the man would come across first, right? And they'd get set up. They get a job. They get some kind of house or an apartment or something, whatever. Okay, and then once they got everything established, they send some money back, to La Familia back in Mexico and say, okay, now you can come. Now either they did one of two things: either they got documented here through like a green card process, legally, which they could do. I mean, you're here, you get a green card, you can get a job, okay. Or they brought them across illegally, but they were already set up in place. They already had things ready to go. So as soon as they got it, when these families did come across the border, they weren't immediately needing housing, shelter, food, whatever. The guy had a job, he had money, he had cash in his pocket, he could pay for these things, and he really didn't want to apply for anything anyway because again, that would raise concerns that hey, but here's me, I'm an illegal. Here's my family, they're all legal. Deport us. They weren't red flagging anybody. So now though, they come across the family unit. Well, now as soon as they come across, one, the man just can't go off and go get a job. He's got his family with him. So he needs social services. Two, the wife, if she's pregnant, she's about to have a baby. Boom, there you go there. Three, you got the kids running around. They need immediate care. They need public schooling. That's money. That's teacher ratios. That's everything. They need health care. They need food. They need housing. That's your Section 8. There's your EBT cards. So it's just a total disaster. And you can't deport them because they're a family unit. And they're now, of course, then they say asylum. So it's just a disaster. So just even 20 years ago, the number was higher. Again, I showed the number from 2007. 2007, we had 800,000 migrants from Mexico come across that year. But again, mainly a lot were single men. And it wasn't a drain. We weren't like, oh my God, this is such a drain on the economy. No, they were working and then getting established and then bringing the family across later. It was bad. I complained about it then, but it wasn't a freaking human catastrophe, which was what's going on now. All right, so now he goes on. The CBT guy goes on to say, now the flow consists mostly of children and families from Central America who under current laws and policy are released into the U.S. Not to mention, I went through I want to say last Monday, I went through the educational levels in Mexico versus, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. It's a big difference. Not to mention, Mexico and the United States, we've been neighbors for a long time. We have a lot of cross ties. We have a lot of family ties. We have a lot of cross-cultural ties. So, when they were coming across, it wasn't like they were just, oh, where do I go? What do I do? Well, no, they had family here. There have been Mexicans living here in this country for over 200 years. 2/3 of everybody who in this country today who claim Mexican descent were born in the United States. So it wasn't like they just kind of wandered into town and not knowing anybody, or now, of course, they need all kinds of social services. They would go immediately. They had family, relatives, cousins, who knows, whoever, friends, people from the same town, the same city, the same village, whatever. It was a different situation. It wasn't this human catastrophe that we have going on now. So a CBP said that over the past 2.5 months, it has released some 75,000 people into communities. Yeah, they've been doing over 1,000 a day, which is about right. 30, 60, 70, over 1,000 per day just been released. And that whole, we can only hold them for 20 days. Well, that 20-day thing, they're not even hitting that 20 day. They're having to release them before they even get to the 20-day mark because they don't have the room. And Inspector General, I covered this last week. Inspector General was down there from Border Patrol and said, hey, man, you can't be doing this, And he, again, Inspector General, he has, the ability, anybody who's been in the military will tell you, the Inspector General, he can make generals' heads roll. He can fire anybody. He can just go in and say, hey, you're done, you're gone, you have a nice day. So, he comes down there with a bunch of pink slips. Anyway, CBP said that over the past 2.5 months, it has released some 75,000 people into communities. That's in addition to nearly 200,000 family members released by ICE so far this fiscal year. So 200,000 this fiscal year, which I believe starts in September, goes through September, I think, September 1st through August 30th. So 200,000 since September, plus another 75,000 in the last 2.5 months. Do the math. That's crazy. Seriously, do the math. I don't feel like doing the math. Hey, Lee, how you doing? Hey, Mr. Great Douchebag, how you doing? Shonda, hey, how's it going? And good seeing you guys. AOC, all AI. Let's see, AI over complaining. AOC. All over complaining. AOC. Okay, there you go. That's cool. I got it, Shonda. A little slow sometimes, Shonda. Sorry about that. Let's see. Let's see. So 200,000 family members released by ICE this year, plus 75,000 people by CBP in just the last 2.5 months. So even at that rate, border authorities say they are overwhelmed and simply cannot process people fast enough to make space for new arrivals. As of Wednesday, CBP had 19,293 in custody. The agency said it considers 6,000 people, less than one-third of that number, a crisis in capacity. Yeah, they had people standing room only. I mean, literally standing room only. The Department of Homeland Security said it will run out of money soon at the rate things are going. The Health and Human Services Department, which under the law is required to take custody of the unaccompanied migrant children, has already hit that point. They've already run out of money to take care of these kids. The Washington Post reported that the agency is cutting back on paying for English classes, soccer playing time, and legal assistance for the children who are housed at government-contracted shelters that operate somewhat like summer camps. Yeah, I think, who was it that went down there? Candace Owens. She took a tour of one of these facilities. That it was like a summer camp. I mean, they had all kinds of stuff. Let's see. Those shelters are at capacity, leaving children stacked up at CBP facilities that were never designed for them. Border Patrol agents now spend up to 6% of their time babysitting migrant children. Think about that. Border Patrol agents now spend 60% of their time babysitting migrant children and families, providing food, transporting them between facilities, or doing hospital watch for medical care. So we have these agents down there, and more than half of their time is just watching after the people that are here. Forget patrolling the border to keep new people from coming in. They're not even on the border anymore. Where are they? I mean, they're not patrolling the border. You know, Amy was ringing that bell about a month ago on this show when she was saying, look, these guys are not even down at the border. And it was about 6 weeks ago or so when they closed they didn't close, but they stopped patrolling the inland border patrol checkpoints, like in Southern California and Riverside County, right before you get to Temecula, between San Diego and Riverside on the 15 freeway. Right before you get to Temecula, there's a border checkpoint where they have Border Patrol agents there and they're looking at the cars. You know, it's a real quick kind of check. I mean, they don't pull people over unless they have a suspicion. But those are all abandoned. They didn't have the manpower to even man those. So if you got across the border, you had a straight run. I mean, you just take the 15 freeway. I'm going up the 15 freeway. Nobody's going to stop me. See you later. So meanwhile, officers have been taken from the border crossings to get the help out. Right, down at the border. So at the border crossing points, they're having to take people out of there where a lot of interdictions are done, a lot of drug interdictions are done. So leading to longer lines for those trying to enter the U.S. Lines at peak times are 40 minutes longer for regular traffic and 25 minutes longer for commercial traffic. Well, you know, if the Republicans zap him on this tariff thing, he ought to just close the border crossings. There you go. Do that. Only people allowed to come through those border crossings would be U.S. citizens. Period. That's it. Nobody else. You know, if you're in Mexico on vacation, hey, you're a U.S. citizen. Okay, you can come through. Nobody else comes across. No commercial traffic. No nothing. Fine. No tariffs. Okay, fine. We're just going to stop all commercial traffic coming through. You know, hey, it's May. It's June. It's the summertime. Those trucks with all those fruit and vegetables, in the back of them, they can't sit out in the sun very long. You know, there's no way. They won't be any good. Nobody's going to buy them. They're going to have to just turn those trucks around and just dump them out somewhere. So there's your tariff. You don't want to pay tariffs? Congress wants to undo his tariffs? Fine. Close the border. Shut it down for a few weeks. Let all that fruit and vegetables on the trucks go bad. Let it rot. And then they get zero for it. Nothing. This is a good idea. Yeah. See how that one plays out. All told, border authorities found 144,270 unauthorized migrants at the border last month, either arrested by Border Patrol agents or encountered by officers at the legal crossings. That is up from 52,000 the same month in 2018, and up from fewer than 20,000 in 2017. So in 2017, in May, it was 20,000 people. In May 2018, it was 52,000 people. This last month, May 2019, it was 144,000 people. Think about that. Effie loves America. Hey, Effie loves America. Do you think the anti-tariffs will get 2/3 in both houses? I don't know. It looks like they might have it in the Senate. Maybe they just need 20 in the Senate, and there's 20 assholes in the Senate. I can see that. McCarthy sent Trump a tweet or something, or tweeted out something. McCarthy in the House thinks he can hold the Republicans to task in the House. Probably because every single Republican is up for reelection. The House, remember, the House only gets you have to you have to run for reelection every 2 years. So every one of them is up for reelection in 2020, and Trump's on the ticket in 2020. So Trump's gonna be like, hey. You voted to end this tariff thing. He'll probably go out. He'll go out to the district and if there's a primary challenger, he'll go out and campaign for the primary challenger. So McCarthy may have an easier time holding the House Republicans in line, saying, "Hey, Trump's over here saying he's going to go out to your district and primary your ass, and you're out of a job. So you better stand firm." So I think the Senate might go. They might have enough in the Senate, but I think the House, because every one of those House Republicans is up for reelection in 2020. Trump has no problem going out and primarying these guys if they vote to shut down his tariffs in Mexico. So I think McCarthy feels pretty. Sounds like McCarthy feels pretty confident he can hold the Republicans in line in the House. You need 2/3 in both houses. So who knows? Let's see. Yeah, see, I hope they don't screw with Trump on the tariffs. Well, they're screwing them already because they're already hurting his negotiating position, Mr. Great Douchebag. See, because, I mean, by letting the Mexicans know that he doesn't have support of the Republicans, the Mexicans don't really have to negotiate as hard. It's bad enough when Schumer said, oh, Trump's just a big bluffer, he'll back down. That's how he always does it. Well, that was bad enough. But then for McConnell to be out there, supporting the Koch brothers, which he's a big establishment guy, always has been, that really undercuts Trump's negotiating power. See, those caught, more than 55,000 were children, including nearly 12,000 who came without parents. So 12,000 unaccompanied minors. Who the hell would send your kids up through Mexico by themselves to get raped, beaten, tortured, have drugs strapped to their legs, and to come across the border? I mean, that's really sad. The Trump administration has pleaded with Congress for $4.5 billion in emergency funding, most of it intended to go to better care for the children and families. Republicans said they tried to approve the money as part of a disaster relief bill that cleared Congress on Monday. Democrats refused, they said. Yeah, I mean, when Trump asked for that $4.5 billion for emergency funding, it wasn't, and he said, look, this had nothing to do with the wall. I'm not asking for money for new Border Patrol agents, new ICE agents, new guns, new uniforms, new anything. I just need $4.5 billion for humanitarian aid for the children and the families that we have in our custody, so we can take care of them. And the Democrats said, no, we're not going to do that. No, just release them. Because first of all, these people don't have anywhere to go. We can't just release them. They don't have family. These people are from Honduras, Guatemala. They don't have any family ties here. We can't. It's not like the Mexicans. You can release them. Lots of their family are here already. But no, these people, they got nowhere to go. You can just release them on the street. They're going to be homeless. They're going to go into these cities and become part of the homeless problem in San Francisco, wherever. Las Cruces, El Paso, wherever. Democrats wouldn't even give them the money for that. And I have an editorial from the Wall Street Journal on that I'm going to be covering here in a second. But a top Democrat on Wednesday blamed Republicans. Yeah, of course. Congressional Republicans need to stop holding up the emergency supplemental negotiations and agree to necessary and reasonable protections to ensure the health and safety of the thousands of unaccompanied children. Well, they asked for the freaking money. They said, just give us the stupid $4.5 billion. We can argue about everything else later. Don't use this as leverage. Let's see. Okay, and then, of course, Democrats blame Trump for the illegal immigration in May. No, they're the ones who told everybody to yell asylum when they hit the border. These numbers are yet another sign the Trump administration's border security immigration policies are abject failures. They're not failures. The only thing that's failing is that the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats and the Senate Republicans are refusing to play hardball on this issue. Okay, and refusing, one, to give them funding to build a damn wall, two, to change the laws where this asylum claim nonsense goes away. Okay, I mean, there are legitimate asylum claims, but trust me, all these people don't need asylum. That's nonsense. There's no way. They don't. They're economic migrants. They want a better life. Well, I'd probably want a better life too, but you don't get to just come in here. We get to decide who comes in and what we can handle and what we can't handle. And we can't handle this right now. Let's see. The administration says it has done that. Border Patrol agents say the chief factor fueling the surge of families is a court-imposed policy that requires families to be released from custody after 20 days, less than half the time it takes to complete their cases. Once released, they go to the back of the line, meaning it could be 3 years or more before they have their court hearings. In one recent pilot program, 90% didn't bother to show up for the hearings. 90%. making them absconders from deportation. And of course, ICE doesn't have the manpower to go round them up. Of the unauthorized immigrant families who arrived in 2017, 98% of them are still here. So of all the unauthorized immigrant families who arrived in 2017, 2 years ago, 98% of them are still here. Not because they went to court and they lost, because they didn't go to court and they're just wandering around. Nobody knows where they are. They're just wandering around, committing identity theft, obviously, because they're not legal, using somebody else's social security number, ID, getting credit, doing what, who knows, whatever. Just running around the country. That's it. And nobody knows where they are. That's just fantastic. And that's the state of the affairs on that. And here's let me cover this story real quick, the DREAM Act. Yeah, I can do it on this one right here. This was yesterday, Tuesday. House passes DREAM Act. Here we go. And here goes Pelosi. We have the opportunity to be part of history. Yeah, history of the downfall of the United States of America. Thank you, idiot. This is by Stephen Dine in the Washington Times from yesterday, June 4th. With chants of, yes, we can, thundering from the rafters, House Democrats on Tuesday powered through legislation to cancel deportations and grant future citizenship rights to millions of illegal immigrants in a vote that nodded more toward 2020 politics than toward substantive policy making. No shit. The 237 to 187 vote marked the first major legalization bill to pass the House in nearly a decade. It underscored the ground Democrats feel they have gained on an issue that both sides expect to be at the center of the presidential election. Hold on a second. Okay. Democrats, let's see. With President Trump calling for action to solve the crisis at the border, Democrats countered by casting their eyes at the 11 million illegal immigrants. Again, Princeton University said it's about 22 million and counting. Eyes at the 11 million illegal immigrants who have already crossed and found places in the nation's shadows. Democrats singled out more than 2 million of them for legalization. They include dreamers, and I hate that phrase, dreamers. They're not dreaming anything, okay? They were brought here illegally. They're not legal U.S. citizens, and they weren't born here, okay? So they came and claimed the whole 14th Amendment thing. They weren't even born here. And foreigners in U.S. under temporary humanitarian protections. Now, let's explain that for a second. Foreigners who are in the U.S. under temporary humanitarian protections, meaning that's like when El Salvador had I don't know, it's got an earthquake or hurricane or whatever the hell happened. Who knows? Who cares? It was like freaking 15, 20 years ago. So we said, I'll tell you what, we let you guys come to the United States until your country gets rebuilt. It was only supposed to be for a few years. Well, that few years turned into 15 years, and they're still here. In fact, 1/3 of the entire population, 1/3 of all El Salvadorians, check this number out, 1/3 of all El Salvadorians reside inside the United States of America. 1/3 of their country lives here. Okay? It was only supposed to be for a few years as a temporary thing until their country got rebuilt. Well, the country's been rebuilt. It's been rebuilt a long time ago. Okay? And 1/3 of them are living in the United States. Okay? So basically you're saying, well, you can stay. And now you can stay forever. Why? Reasons. Who knows? Anyway, so Pelosi went on to say, we have the opportunity to be part of history, to be on the right side of history, said House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. As dreamers and other immigrant rights activists watched from packed viewing galleries, they cheered and chanted as the bill crossed the finish line. Great. But history is not likely to be made this year. Republicans who control the Senate won't bring Ms. Pelosi's bill to the floor. They say it ignores the urgent problems at the border and doesn't include any tools to prevent waves of illegal immigration. True. The White House also vowed to veto even if the bill reached the president's desk. It won't. No compromise is possible without both sides coming to the table, the White House said in a policy statement this week. Democrats didn't seem interested in compromise, given the path the bill took to reach the final vote. Party leaders in the House carved out just 2 hours, 2 whole hours of floor debate. They blocked Republicans from offering any amendments and made no overtures to find common ground, effectively daring Republicans to either vote for the bill as is or else be labeled anti-immigrant. Well, tough. I'll take that label. And they're not anti-immigrant. It's anti-illegal immigrant, okay? Republicans countered with accusations of amnesty, saying the bill erased years of illegal status for millions of migrants without requiring any significant punishment. Right, because remember they always said, well, we'll make them pay back taxes, we'll make them go to classes, we'll make them do this. No, it's just automatic. Boom. You're here, have a nice day, you're legal. Critics also said millions of people waiting in Central America and elsewhere were watching and would see the vote as a promise of amnesties. Yeah, you think we got 150,000 caught in May, Take that number up to about 300,000 if that bill ever passed. Actually, just talk of this bill, unfortunately, makes these people attracts these people here because they're saying, "Oh, I guess they don't know the bill didn't pass. What do they know? They just see Democrats vote for this, and they say, "Oh, good, let's go." Either we have a way to get in legally to our country or we don't, said Representative Doug Collins, Georgia Republican. Republicans insisted that they want to protect dreamers, but said any bill must also include border security measures. First of all, why are we protecting quote-unquote dreamers? Why? How did that happen? Why is that our responsibility? Because they were dragged here by their parents? So suddenly now you can stay? That guarantees the right to stay? So if my parents dragged me to Canada, then I can say, well, hey, it wasn't my fault. I want to stay? No, Canada would tell me, get lost. Get out of here. Democratic leaders rebuffed those calls for compromise. They said Republicans had their chance last year when they controlled the House, Senate, and the White House. Yeah, bullshit. They know they didn't have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. And although, albeit that, let's be honest, Republicans in both the House and the Senate weren't interested in doing anything substantive on immigration. Why? For the same reason they're trying to screw with the president right now on this tariff thing with Mexico. Again, they want their big corporate leaders who give them money want illegal immigration, and that's why people like Ryan and McConnell don't really give a shit about the wall or stopping it or e-verify. Listen to a Republican mention e-verify. They won't. Because e-verify means that every employer would have to have this, over a certain amount of number of employees, has an e-verify system so that if somebody comes and says, hey, hire me, and they give you a social security card, you then run it through like an email system, like a little scanner system, which we have the technology for. I mean, it's quick. Okay, you just shoot it through. It goes back to D.C. D.C. comes back and says, yes, that's real, or no, it's not. You can't hire them. Okay, and if you don't get approval, you can't hire them. And, of course, you won't hear any Republicans mentioning that because they want employers to be able to hire illegal aliens and drive down the cost of labor, drive down wages for Americans that are here right now. Let's see. Besides Democrats said they did compromise, albeit it was amongst themselves. Liberals fought with party moderates over how generous to make forgiveness provisions of the bill and whether to exclude illegal immigrants with gang ties or drunk driver convictions. Now imagine that. They actually had a debate whether to exclude illegal immigrants who were gangbangers. Okay, gangs, MS-13, everything else. They actually had to have a debate on that. That wasn't just automatic saying, oh, well, no, of course we'll exclude, illegal immigrants with gang ties. So in the end, Democrats wrote the bill so that appearing on check this out. In the end, Democrats wrote the bill so that appearing on gang membership databases could be used as evidence, but wouldn't be an automatic block. So in other words, if you're in a gang membership database, it's not an automatic block to citizenship. Okay? Having a DUI wouldn't be enough to disqualify someone either. Though multiple DUIs would be a problem. Would be a problem. So in other words, if you drive drunk, it's not a big deal. Drive drunk, run into somebody, gets pled down to a simple DUI, then, that's okay. You can drive drunk in our country, even though you're not supposed to be here to begin with. And now we're going to make you a citizen. Welcome aboard. Hey. Let's see. Republicans attempted during debate to change the bill to explicitly exclude gang members, but Democrats soundly rejected the effort. I mean, that's insane. Who the hell would reject the effort to exclude gang members? Anyway, Republicans said, if you've been designated a danger to Americans, then you don't deserve to become an American, said Representative Ben Cline, Virginia Republican. The debate underscored how much the immigration issues have changed over the years and how little has changed in the politics. In 2010, during a lame duck session, Pelosi led the House to pass legislation known as the DREAM Act that would have legalized illegal immigrant dreamers who came to the U.S. as juveniles. Nearly 2 million people would have qualified for temporary legal status, but less than 40% of them would have gone on to gain green cards, the Migration Policy Institute estimated at the time. This year's bill includes the DREAM Act grants legal status to two other populations. Those here under deferred enforced departure or temporary protected status. Both are humanitarian protections designed to prevent people from being sent back to home countries torn by war, natural disasters, or other dangers. Well, we have lots of dangers in this country. Go try being in it'd be the west side of Baltimore at night along the harbor, or the south side of Chicago, or East St. Louis, or downtown L.A., East L.A. Yeah, okay, that's pretty much a war zone any night of the week. All right, those protections were supposed to be temporary, giving the home country the chance to recover, but hundreds of thousands of migrants have been protected for more than 2 decades under the program. All told, this year's bill could grant legal protection to 2.7 million. Again, that number is only going to go up. 2.7 million people. The Migration Policy Institute estimated, and the bill would create new paths for citizenship for future TPS holders. Even as the demographics change, so did the votes in Congress. 2010, only 8 Republicans backed the act, backed the DREAM Act. And on Tuesday, the more generous bill won the support of every single Democrat and just 7 Republicans. Where back in 2010, 38 Democrats actually voted against it. And I mean, that's just crazy. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. Democrats and the border children. This is what I was talking about earlier. Why won't good liberals help even with the humanitarian mess? Good question. I don't know. Let me grab a cigarette. Oh yeah, I agree, Rino. We have natural disasters ourselves. You don't see anybody coming to help us or saying, "Hey, you come live in our country until you come live in our country until you get it fixed up." You know, no problem. Just come on over. Nope, that doesn't happen. Definitely doesn't happen. All right, let's see here. This is an opinion piece. Let me make sure I got it big enough so you guys can see it here. Let me double check. Yeah, okay. Okay, Democrats and the border children. Why won't good liberals help even with the humanitarian mess? By the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. At least 2 migrant children died in May at the U.S.-Mexico border, including a boy with the flu and a 10-month-old who drowned in the Rio Grande. President Trump is misguided in using tariffs against Mexico to solve the border mess. Again, the Wall Street Journal, we're going to take this article with a grain of salt because the Wall Street Journal likes illegal immigration. But he's right about the crisis of families with children arriving to exploit U.S. asylum law. He's also right that Democrats refuse to help. The statistics tell a story of border mayhem, and these aren't invented by the White House. Now, see, if the Wall Street Journal is saying there's a crisis at the border, trust me, there's a crisis at the border because the Wall Street Journal again is very pro illegal immigration. Okay, they represent their newspaper, well, I'm a subscriber, but I mean they're writing for the big corporate elites, the guys who make a lot of money on import export. That's why they're against tariffs to begin with, and the big corporate guys who like to employ cheap labor. So that's the Wall Street Journal. And if the Wall Street Journal is saying this is a crisis, it's a crisis. So the statistics tell a story of border mayhem, and these aren't invented by White House aide Stephen Miller. They're not big Stephen Miller fans. Anyway, in the first 8 months of fiscal 2019. Border agents apprehended nearly 56,000 unaccompanied children at the southern border, as well as nearly 333,000 migrants traveling as part of a family. In May 2019, Customs Border Protection apprehended 132,000 who crossed the border illegally, compared to 14,000 in May of 2017. In simple humanitarian terms, U.S. border personnel are overwhelmed. Health and Human Services is tasked with caring for the children, but is running out of money to do so. Customs Border Patrol is so busy trying to manage families that is out of money to detain adults who arrive illegally. Since children can't be detained beyond 20 days, they're released along with their parents. Border Protection can't send home unaccompanied children from Central American countries. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is coping with record numbers in detention facilities. So adult migrants without known criminal records are now sometimes released pending their date in immigration court. This means the U.S. border is effectively open to anyone who wants to come across. Exactly. We don't have a border right now, just to let everybody know. We know that right now, as of right now, there is no border. There is no border. Anybody who wants to come across can come across. That's how it is right now. Yet, incredibly, Congress passed a disaster relief bill this week that does nothing to address this obvious emergency. The administration is seeking $4.5 billion, or some $2.8 billion of which would go to Health and Human Services (HHS) to care for the children. What about the children? Remember, what about the children? What about the children? Well, I guess they don't care. Including 26,600 more beds. Another $1.1 billion would go to Homeland Security, including $391 million for food, shelter, medical care, and other humanitarian needs, and $530 million would pay for transporting, processing, and detaining migrants, among other expenses. The money is crucial, but Congress can also help by making 3 simple changes to reduce the incentives. Excuse me, to reduce the incentives for families and children to seek asylum. The most important would let Border officials detain families and children beyond 20 days. The current limit guarantees that more will come because they know they will be released into the U.S. as they wait a formal asylum hearing that can take years, and many never show up. We just did the numbers. 90%, 90% don't show. The second change would let children claim asylum protection in their home country, then allow them to reunite with parents already in the U.S. That would remove the incentives to bring them on the dangerous journey north, and it would also reduce the strain on CBP and HHS, which are increasingly providing child care for migrants. We're turning our Customs Border Patrol and ICE agents into daycare providers. That's really, well, overnight providers. The third change would tighten the standards for asylum claims during the initial asylum check. The current standard is the low bar of establishing credible fear. Well, exactly, a persecution. And as many as 90% pass, even though many face no such threat at home. A better standard would change this to the likely possibility, to be granted asylum. All of these changes would reduce the incentive for parents to march to the U.S. border from every town in Central America. They would ease the burden on overwhelmed border agents and caregivers, and they would reduce the risks and more deaths as the summer heat takes its toll. None of this involves Mr. Trump's wall at the border. This is about providing the money so the U.S. government can fulfill its legal mandates and restore some order and adequate care on an increasingly lawless border. Democrats claim to care about migrants, but their real priority seems to be exploiting the mayhem for political gain. Exactly. Amazing. Let's see. All right. So here's the results of the tariff talks. Yeah. See, Mexicans know the Senate Republicans are letting the Mexicans know you don't really have to negotiate with this guy. This thing's going to go into effect Monday, Tuesday. We'll vote to end it, and we'll get it through. Then we'll have enough votes to override his veto. And so the Mexicans, there's a guy with a big grin on his face. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Marcelo Ebrard, Mexico's Secretary of Foreign Affairs, passed reporters as he leaves a news conference at the Embassy of Mexico Wednesday, June 5th. Yeah, a big grin on his face because he knows he's got his by the balls because the Senate Republicans, thank you, not the Democrats, Senate Republicans are selling the president out for their corporate masters. It's by Stephen Dine in the Washington Times. The first day of talks between the White House and Mexican officials ended Wednesday without any deal on Mexico's border efforts for President Trump's promise to impose punitive tariffs. They can stop it right now. Okay, this is not hard, but they won't. From Europe, Mr. Trump said the discussions were good but didn't reach any breakthroughs. Talks in Mexico will resume tomorrow with the understanding that if no agreement is reached, tariffs at the 5% level will begin on Monday, with monthly increases as per schedule, the president said. The higher the tariffs go, the higher the number of companies that will move back to the USA. Pence was leading the talks with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Acting Homeland Security Kevin McClain also there. They were negotiating with Mexican Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard, as we read about earlier. Ebrard said he had an 80-20 chance of getting a deal done. Yeah, he didn't say what he would be offering, but news reports in Mexico said he would suggest stepped-up patrols on Mexico's southern border. That's such nonsense. It's 120 miles. You can close down 120 miles like you weren't standing there. I mean, it's 120 miles, okay? And again, it's not just 120 miles of you can run across. There's a river, there's a couple of bridges, a lot of choke points. So, all right, let's find out what else is going on. Oh, we're staying on the immigration topic. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals speeds emergency wall case, but not fast enough for President Trump. All right, let's take a look at this. This by Stephen Dine, also the Washington Times. President Trump's least favorite appeals court said it will speed his appeal of a decision blocking his border wall emergency, but didn't move fast enough. The Ninth Circuit, U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said it will hear arguments June 20th on the case, but the Justice Department has asked for a ruling by June 17th. Well, they're not even going to hear arguments on the 20th, okay? Saying it wanted to be able to lodge an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court before the justices end their term this month. The three-judge panel overseeing the case at the appeals court includes 2 Bush appointees and 1 Obama appointee. An Obama appointee at the judicial court level ruled last month that Mr. Trump oversteps his powers. Yeah, I read that decision. That was by, what's that guy's name? Whatever. But anyway, it was just, like I said, when I read that opinion, it was a conclusion in search of the facts and the law that you could twist to get to the conclusion the judge already predetermined. I mean, we read the decision. It was obvious, okay? The guy had a conclusion. He wanted to stop Trump from building the wall, stop the emergency declaration, and he went and looked for, facts he could twist, laws he can twist to get, to justify his decision. An Obama appointee at the Judicial Court level ruled last month Mr. Trump had overstepped his powers when he issued his emergency declaration claiming powers to shift money around to build his border wall. The judge ruled that Congress must explicitly designate money for something or else the president cannot spend it. The whole point of the emergency declaration is that the Congress hasn't designated it for it. If they had, you wouldn't need the emergency declaration. Okay, that's the whole point of the emergency declaration is to take money that Congress hasn't designated for a specific project and move it over to that. Okay, that's why the whole decision was so stupid, because if they had designated the money, you wouldn't need an emergency declaration to get the money to spend on that designation because it's already been designated. Okay? Idiot. Anyway, the Justice Department had argued that Congress had granted the president broad emergency powers to shift money around, and unless Capitol Hill specifically forbids him, he's within his rights to shift the money to his purpose. Correct. With nearly $500 million already shifted within the Pentagon to build more wall, the administration said it was eager to get started, hoping to make good on Mr. Trump's most prominent campaign promise. The Ninth Circuit, which is hearing the appeal, has been a favorite punching bag of Mr. Trump, who mocks the court's liberal bent and its repeated decisions blocking his immigration policies. Well, it's more than just that, though. I mean, regardless of when the Supreme Court has been liberal or conservative, the Ninth Circuit is still the most overturned circuit court of appeals in the country, meaning they don't make good decisions. They're not legally sound. They're the most having the reputation of being the most overturned U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals is embarrassing. They should be ashamed of themselves. But they're not. They don't care, So, there you go. All right, let's get some crazy talk here. Joe Biden. Here we go. Plagiarism redux. Joe Biden stumbles on the same issue that helped sink his 1988 bid with the coal miner. I was the son of a coal miner. His dad owned a car dealership in Wilmington, Delaware. In fact, when I went out to Wilmington 2 years ago, visited a friend of mine, we were driving around the town, and he pointed to the car dealership where Joe Biden's dad actually owned. And he goes, "Yeah, there's a coal mine." And he points to the car dealership. he said, I even bought a car there. He goes, it's funny. He goes, when Biden said that back in '88 about his dad being a coal miner and all this stuff, and which he had copied from this labor member of parliament from years earlier, the same speech. It was exactly the same speech, by the way. It wasn't like he just paraphrased it. He used the same exact speech. And it's funny. He says, it's a small city. It's a very small city. The only reason why they have any kind of buildings there because all the credit card companies. You ever see like on your credit card it says Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware? Yeah, it's only because they have some buildings there. They have their headquarters there. That's it. That's the only reason why it has anything going on there. So, of course, it had DuPont Chemical. DuPont was there. They had huge factories there. A lot of them closed down, but the DuPont family pretty much built Wilmington from the ground up. And they did gunpowder, all kinds of stuff, Civil War stuff, all that. They made a fortune. But anyway, so it's a very small town. So he was telling me that when he came out and said that in '88 about his dad being a coal miner, a lot of people know. Like when I was driving through Wilmington, he goes, "Oh, there's Senator so and so's house, there's the governor's house." I mean, it's just a small. It was like 30 minutes within driving around. He's pointing to all these people's houses. And so everybody knows everybody in that town. And he says when he said that coal miner thing, everybody just looked at each other like, "What? His dad wasn't a coal miner. We know his dad. He owned that car dealership." But anyway, I guess he did it again. Let's take a look. So Joe Biden stumbles on the same issue that helped sink him in 1988, plagiarism. Charges of plagiarizing policy documents piled up Wednesday against former Vice President Joe Biden, putting the 2020 frontrunners campaign on defense in a replay of the issue that largely torpedoed his 1988 presidential bid. The Biden camp said it would add citations to the climate plan released Tuesday after passages were found to match, in some cases, word for word, statements previously posted online by several environmental groups. The blunder gave an opening to Republicans. Gave an opening to Republicans, my ass. Gave an opening to Warren, Sanders, and Harris. That's who it gave an opening to, all right? The blunder gave an opening to Republicans, starting with President Trump, who called it a big problem, while Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna Romney McDaniel said it speaks to his integrity. In the long run, however, the incident may have done more damage by focusing renewed interest on the 30-year-old scandal over his 1987 campaign speech copied from Neil Kinnock, the leader of the Britain's Labour Party, in the discovery he plagiarized a paper at Syracuse Law School. Not good. I see he plagiarized the paper when he was in law school at Syracuse. He plagiarized from Neil Kinnock, the leader of Britain's Labour Party, 30 years ago, 1987. Now he's doing it again. It's like him touching those little girls and stuff. he can't help himself. He's a plagiarizer, a pedophile. He just can't help himself. He's like, I want to touch little girls. I want to plagiarize. It's like you can see like he's getting ready to write a speech, and like these little girls are walking by the office. He's like, oh, like he doesn't know what to do first. Should I grab those little girls, or should I smell their hair? Should I kiss their hair, or should I go plagiarize something? It's probably like half a dozen, 1/6 of the other for him. So anyway, he was honestly, honestly, he was saying here. Okay. Honestly, the first thought that I had was, "Oh no, not again," said Jonathan Bailey, an expert witness on plagiarism who founded the Plagiarism Today website. The deja vu also provides more evidence that the biggest threat to Mr. Biden's presidential aspiration lies, at least for now, on the left. The additional discovery of 2 instances of virtually identical wording was discovered and publicized not by Republicans, thank you, but by Josh Nelson, vice president of the left-wing group Credo Mobile, which has championed Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's far more ambitious Green New Deal. Mr. Nelson post touched off a fact-checking frenzy that quickly produced more examples. The Daily Caller News Foundation found 3 more excerpts in the climate plan. The Washington Post then unearthed a passage in the Biden education policy that mirrored language from the XQ Institute. Oh, God. This guy, he doesn't have an original thought. That's his problem. And when he does have an original thought, it's just blurt something stupid out. Or go grab a little girl and kiss the back of her head and smell her hair and whisper in their ears. That kind of stuff. That's the only original thoughts he has. He's like, where are the little girls? Can I go grab me a little girl? That's the only original thought he has. That's it. Oh, God. For example, the Biden energy policy said carbon capture, use, and storage, CCUS, is a rapidly growing technology that has potential to create economic benefits for multiple industries while significantly reducing carbon dioxide emission. A September 2017 letter sent from the Blue-Green Alliance said carbon capture and sequestration is a rapidly growing technology that has potential to create economic benefits for multiple industries while significantly reducing carbon dioxide emissions. In a statement, the Biden campaign said it would update its website to give appropriate credit. Several citations, some from sources cited in other parts of the plan, were inadvertently left out of the final version of the 22-page document, the campaign told CNN. As soon as we were made aware of it, we updated to include the proper citations. Not letting Mr. Biden off the hook were Republicans, including Ms. McDaniel, who was quick to remind voters Wednesday of the Democrats' history of transgressions. Joe Biden has been plagiarizing longer than I've been alive, she said on Fox News. It started in law school at Syracuse and continued through his failing 1980s presidential campaign, and now we're back at it. There was also little in the way of sympathy from media figures like CNN host John King, who blasted the Biden campaign as lazy or arrogant. This is a pretty amateur mistake for the frontrunners campaign to make on a substantial policy rollout when they had to know when Team Biden got together planning to announce his campaign, the one thing they cannot do is plagiarize. Right. I mean, who wants to relive that story? Which now they are. Coming to Mr. Biden's defense was Michael Grunwald, senior writer of Politico. I don't care. It's a politician's plan. Yeah. Anyway, you get the point on that one. All right, let's see here. Let's see what else I'm going to cover here. Got that. There we go. This is from the Washington Examiner, actually. As I told you a couple of weeks ago, I subscribed to another newspaper also, the Washington Examiner, kind of give us a more full kind of version of what's going on out there. Trump administration bans government scientists from using aborted fetal tissue in research. That's good, because that's Planned Parenthood is making a fortune on this, on these babies. I mean, it was crazy. Okay, let's see here. Get rid of this stupid ad. The only thing about the Washington Examiner is like Ad City. It's like the advertisements, and I'm a subscriber to them too. It's like I can see if I wasn't a subscriber and they got to inundate me with all these stupid ads. But the Washington Examiner, I'm a subscriber. I pay for the subscription, and I still get inundated with all these stupid ads. It's like crazy. But anyway, it's the only bad thing about the paper. Other than that, it's a good paper. Okay, the Trump administration will block government scientists from acquiring new fetal tissue from abortions to use in medical research, a major victory for abortion opponents. Promoting the dignity of human life from conception to natural death is one of the very top priorities of President Trump's administration, the Department of Health and Human Services said in a statement Wednesday that announced the change. Hold on, let me get some water real quick. Ray Bisley as with Carlos. Yeah, drinking more water lately. It's getting warm up here in Nevada. It's got to 98 degrees today. It's probably going to top over 100 degrees tomorrow, and then it's going to be all uphill literally from there, all the way through till usually it starts cooling down in October, if we're lucky. So, yeah, so from now until about October, it's going to be miserable. Over 100 degrees every day, every day, every day. And over 100 is not so bad. You get used to that, but when it gets over 110, that's when you start feeling it. Especially if you're wearing like a suit, a t-shirt, cotton shirt, tie, and then a suit jacket. Not much fun. Let me tell you right now. You can be outside just a few minutes from getting from the courthouse to your car, and man, and then of course you get in the car, and that's not any better. That's a disaster as well. It's like, oh great, I made it to the car. Nice and hot, nice hot car. But anyway, so promoting the dignity of human life from conception to natural death is one of the very top priorities of President Trump's administration. The Department of Health and Human Services said in a statement Wednesday that announced the change. The decision comes after months of speculation as well as backlash from anti-abortion groups that demanded President Trump fire the head of National Institutes of Health, Dr. Francis Collins, for saying that research using fetal tissue could provide useful study for treatments of devastating illnesses. The ban applies to scientists at National Institute of Health, the government's medical research agency. It would not apply to fetal tissue obtained from miscarriages, but only to fetal tissue that was donated after elected abortions. HHS, which is a National Institute of Health parent agency, in September had already asked most government scientists to temporarily halt the acquisition of new fetal tissue while it reviewed the issue. The new ban does not apply to outside groups that receive NIH grants to conduct the research. That's too bad, though HHS did announce it would not be renewing a multi-million-dollar contract with the University of California, San Francisco that used fetal tissue in HIV research. The contract has been renewed every 90 days since the end of September, as federal officials have reviewed it, but it won't be extended past Wednesday when it was set to expire. All right. Okay, let's see what's the next story we want to cover here. Oh, here we go. Nancy Pelosi, the voice of sanity and reason in the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want Trump impeached. I want to see him in prison. Of course, that makes all the sense in the world. He's running the country better than anybody ever could. And yes, we got to go lock him up because reasons. Victor Morton of the Washington Times. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi might not be the most enthusiastic supporter of impeaching Trump. She reportedly wants a far worse fate. According to a report Wednesday evening in Politico, Pelosi told her fellow Democrats that she wants to see Mr. Trump behind bars. Ms. Pelosi upped the ante at a Tuesday night private meeting with other top Democrats to settle strategy and turf issues, whether to impeach the president, a path about which Ms. Pelosi has been publicly dubious and remained so at the meeting. I don't want to see him impeached. I want to see him in prison, Pelosi said. Politico reported citing multiple Democratic sources familiar with the meeting. The source told Politico that the Speaker's preferred strategy is to have Mr. Trump defeated in 2020 and once out of office, prosecuted by a Justice Department no longer hamstrung about the constitutional difficulties a criminal probe of a sitting president creates. A major part of Ms. Pelosi's opposition to impeachment is that it would remove him, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so she's crazy. And let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, just one little side story I wanted to bring up here. This is from immigrationreform.com. If you're not subscribed to their website, I definitely recommend it. It's really good stories. They give Washington Times, Washington Examiner. They give good stories on the immigration stuff. But immigrationreform.com, it's obviously it's a website. They can go a little bit deeper into some stories, a little bit deeper dive. So it's a little. Sometimes you learn things that you wouldn't otherwise know, which I like. I like learning new things. But anyway, thoughts about Farr's use of the word alien. This is kind of funny how they use this because they've been catching a lot of shit because they refer to, I guess, they refer to illegal aliens as illegal aliens, which is what they are under the law. But anyway, So so this is what they're writing. A recent Fair opinion column, and Fair it stands for, I don't know what it stands for. I don't know. It stands for something about immigration. How about that? There we go. Anyway, so a recent Fair opinion column submission was flagged by an editor who questioned Fair's use of the word alien. The editor noted that if the word remained in the column, the publication would be certain to attract a lot of unwanted attention from social justice warriors, my words, who have deemed the term at best insensitive and at worst outright hostile. Sadly, this folly was actually nothing new. Fair has been criticized over the years. But let's see. So watch this. So we always push back against these objections, noting that alien is a legal term that is used widely by Congress, the Library of Congress, and most attorneys across the U.S. when dealing with immigration matters. That is true. The last part is definitely true. Most importantly, it's not just Republicans in Congress that use this term. In fact, it's worth noting that the H.R. 6, the American Dream and Promise Act, the one we were just of 2019, the one we were just talking about that the Pelosi and Democrats just passed, the amnesty bill passed this week and supported by every single Democrat in the House of Representatives, invoked the word alien more than 230 times when referring to individuals who are not citizens of the U.S. And then he writes, case closed. It's like, hey, you guys use it all the time. Democrats even use it in their bill 230 times. So there you go. But anyway, the immigration issue is huge. It's something we let's see here. It's something we really got to pay attention to. Hopefully we can, if you live in a state where you have a Rhino Republican, like we always say, email him, get your friends to email him, do whatever you have to. Let him know we're not happy if he's going to, overturn the president. Although, albeit, you might want to, if you're going to spend any time on this, find your Republican congressman. Because, again, they're up for re-election in 2020 for sure. And if you live in that guy's district, then you could have a much bigger effect. Let them know, hey, you know what? If you vote against the president on this tariff thing with Mexico, I'm going to vote for the primary challenger. I'm going to support the primary challenger. I'm going to give the guy a few bucks. I'm going to go volunteer in his office. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you out until you lose in the primary and you lose your job. Okay? Again, McCarthy has a little better chance of holding Republicans in line, but, let's all of us let our, Republicans in the House know that, if you vote against the president on this bill, this is the red line in the sand, and we shall vote for the primary challenger. We don't care if it's Mickey Mouse, okay? Mickey Mouse will be running against you in the primaries in 2020, and we're going to vote for Mickey Mouse. These guys love keeping their jobs, so let them know they're not keeping this job if they vote against the president. But anyway, I just want to say good night to everybody. Thanks. There's some good issues we talked about tonight. And for Carl's opinion, this is Carl. Everybody have a great night. Thanks to everybody in the chat, to all those reviewing, and all those who will be viewing later. Take care, guys. Have a great night. Bye-bye.